My name is Leo Tampok, and I'm the Business Development Manager from Service IT Plus. And for today's session with Ben Sabadilla entitled Enable Work from Home with Splashtop, we will be talking about the importance of having the right tools in the remote work setup. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. Our webinar for today is being recorded and will be available for all viewers soon after the session. Benz?
Yes, we'll also be having a question and answer session at the end of the webinar. So if you have any questions during the presentation and the demo, just pop them on the question pane that you can see on your screens. If ever we miss anything, don't worry, because you can reach us through our different social media, which we'll be sharing later in this webinar. So without further ado, let's start this webinar. Leo will start explaining more about the importance of having the right tools in enabling our productivity of our employees.
Okay, thank you, Benz. Yeah. So as the pandemic stretches on, employees are becoming more and more accustomed to the work from home arrangement. Economic activities, even when the lockdowns were lifted, showed the decrease because of people's fear and hesitation of engaging with others. In an interview last April, the Department of Labor and Employment stated that there are a total of 2,662 establishments and around 70,649 workers that are working from home since the start of that month. For sure, this number has increased as we are still in the situation. But the statistics given that month was enough for the Trade Union Congress of the Philippines to say that work from home is the new normal. Remote work is actually one of the choices of workforce arrangements even before, but because of the pandemic, there have been surge in the number of remote workers all over the globe. It is undeniable that this arrangement has a lot of consequences when it comes to team management, communication, and accessibility. It can affect a person's health and lifestyle because of the stress that comes with it. But according to a Lenovo global study, around 77% of workers are willing and open to completely working remotely even when the pandemic is over. Employees' willingness to adapt to flexible work arrangements should not only be a reflection of their resilience, but it should also serve as a call for companies to invest in a smarter and better technologies for the sake of their employees' productivity outside their offices. That is why we Service IT Plus partnered with Splashtop as an elite partner. So Service IT could provide you guidance on what the right solutions Splashtop could provide you when you are trying to look for the right solution. We have Benz to explain how Splashtop can be the best solution to your needs.
Yeah, thanks, Leo. Yes, it's really interesting to see those numbers that you have shown earlier. We have seen how those numbers have increased. That the number that have adapted the work from home arrangement have increased recently due to the pandemic, and it's interesting because before this pandemic started, before we were all quarantined in our homes, there was always an ongoing argument in our industry whether the work from home arrangement is really productive or not. There was this existing mindset that remote workers are not as productive compared to the ones who are going into the office, and this mindset also entails that there's this type of work arrangement can only be applied to certain roles in our industry, mostly in IT, sales, and marketing. These types of roles that can function without needing to be in the office. But we are seeing a perception change right now. As you mentioned, Leo, there's a lot of users already adapting the work from home arrangement. I'd like to share this survey conducted by Splashtop last May of 2020, just this year, on how professionals across industries had transitioned working remotely during the pandemic. 870 individuals worldwide from various industries took the survey. And what we have found is that more than half of the respondents see that their productivity levels working from home is the same, if not more productive, compared to when they were working in the offices. And the reason behind this is that we now have the right tools to enable this. The people who are productive, based on the survey, said that they have the right tools in their organizations that they can use to be just as productive as they were in the office. On the other hand, the 20.1% said that who are less productive mentioned that they do not have the right tools right now. So maybe if we ask these questions or this survey 15 or even 10 years ago, we would get a very different response because the technology wasn't ready or present on those times yet. Uh, since digital transformation, especially cloud computing and remote access solutions, practically any professional who works on a computer right now can remote workly. And that is a significant portion of the workforce, right? Today, almost every field today utilizes software applications for most, if not all, tasks. However, there are still aspects of an in-office setting that cannot be replaced at home. The camaraderie, collaboration, and there are some tasks that cannot be digitized. Nonetheless, other benefits of remote workforces like the ability to spend more time with your family, lesser crowded roads, environmental rejuvenation, and so might tip the balance in our favor, at least for hybrid workforce. A blended model of a remote and an in-office workforce is possible. So, what is the role and purpose of a remote access solution in this type of situation, in this new normal? In that survey also, same survey that we discussed earlier, we asked our respondents for their usage of certain types of tools during this period, during the start of the pandemic. And what we have found, if you see here on the slide, on the graph, users are much more using of their collaboration and communication tools during the pandemic. What's more interesting, on the last section here of the graph, there's a large set of users who have just started using these tools because of the pandemic. So they were forced to use these tools without having any experience of using them at all. This means that a lot of organizations out there are still not used to these kinds of environment, and they have not invested in the right tools prior to the pandemic. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, along with collaboration, communication tools, remote access and remote support solutions saw a significant spike in individuals and professionals, organizations alike. There has been a lot of requests for remote access to enable their business continuity plans at home. In Splashtop, for example, as a partner, there have been a huge increase of customers in Service IT Plus, as well as a lot of leads as well, individuals who have tried and subscribed to the trials of Splashtop Online. And we believe this is because a lot of the users out there are still looking to be productive. They're still looking for ways that they can enable their team and continue their work at home. So why the increase? No? Remote access solutions for these types of solutions. These solutions enable our professionals to work remotely by accessing their work computers and carry out their tasks in real time. Not only IT professionals that write code or provide technical support, but there's also a lot of users in video production, the ones who edit videos, architects, doing 3D models. There's also users in the game development. Doctors, especially right now in the healthcare systems, have been using remote access tools to access patient records remotely in the hospitals from their home. Students, for example, especially during the start of the school season, students have been using remote access to access their lab computers in the schools and from anywhere using their mobile devices. So for professionals in these fields, working from home has not been the norm until today because the heavy license applications they use are not cloud-based and still follow the on-premise model, which means that they are installed and can only be used inside the offices, on the laboratories or schools, and so on. So with remote access solutions, the possibilities right now of work and study are not bounded and are endless. To break it all down, we have also asked them, are the respondents, how they are using the remote access tools right now. And well, here are most of the common responses that we have. And it is similar to what we have experienced as well as with our customers in Service IT Plus. First and most common use case is that users need to remotely access computer resources. They access their PCs and Macs from a laptop or mobile device from home. They access their applications they use for accounting, reporting, the applications they use for video editing, broadcasting, some specialized applications as well for diagnostics, billing, invoicing, ERP systems, CAD, and so much more of these enterprise applications. So some of these users may need to access confidential files as well or data, meaning the applications carry the data that cannot be moved outside of the computers at the office. So they have to access this data from the applications remotely. And so the bottom line is that basically we see our users who doesn't have access to the application and data they need for work. They use remote access solutions to access their computers in the office as if they were sitting right in front of it, and they can be as productive as just they are in the office. There's also a lot of use cases, Leo, in terms of facilitating remote learning. Our teachers right now are using iPad, Chromebook, Surface Pro to remote into school computers and conduct remote lessons remotely. And they can do it effectively by doing some annotations on the device and allowing collaboration with students or interaction with students even during the remote learning session. Our students as well, they have been using remote access tools to access their computers in the school, complete their projects. Some IT admins solve problems that students run into by remoting in their computer device. And in line with that, the third use case that I'd like to discuss here is um, using remote access to support devices. So this is more commonly with our IT support help desk out there. They support their client or their customers in troubleshooting and resolving issues that they are experiencing. They remote into client computers to monitor their systems. Some may help family members with issue related to computers and mobile devices, which is pretty common. Even for me, a lot of my relatives right now have started working from home, and they're asking for technical support from me because they know that I'm the IT guy in the family. So I use Splashtop to remotely access them and fix whatever they are having problems with. So we also see a lot of use case for providing support with remote access tools. And lastly, and quite surprisingly, some users of our remote access use it for just complete convenience in terms of how they work, how they function into their day-to-day tasks. They work from different places in the house, and they by remoting into the desktop from their iPads, Chromebooks, or even their mobile devices, they're able to do their work at any part of the house and can switch conveniently and in real time. They use iPads, TVs, and other screens for second monitor as well. They mirror the cell phone apps to another computer, and maybe they use it to watch games or play games and watch movies. Again, personally, I also sometimes use this for my convenience. Sometimes when I install a large application or running a batch file commands on my database, I don't want to wait in front of my computer. So I lay down in my bed, watch Netflix, and then I use remote access to check into my monitor, check in the progress, and when it's done processing, I just simply shut it down remotely from the comfort of my couch. So these are the most common use cases, and there's a lot more use cases out there. Again, the key here is that it all helps our end users to be more productive and enabling them to do their roles, to do their tasks remotely at the home. So here's how Splashtop can help. We provide unattended remote access for our end users out there for the use cases that I've mentioned in the previous slide. Our offering, Splashtop Business Access Pro, is fast, simple, and secure. It's designed for our professional individuals or teams working in the enterprise. So I just want to highlight some of the very useful features of Splashtop aside from the remote access functionality. First, you get the management capabilities. Here we have user management. This allows you, as an admin of your team or the platform, to assign specific roles and permissions to users of your team. It allows you to allow only a specific device or a group of devices to a certain individual or group of users. now benefit for both ends. For our users out there, I can quickly see my devices that I need to access instead of seeing hundreds or thousands of devices that's in the organizations already. And of course, for our administrators or for our team leaders out there, in terms of security, you have more control and accountability among your end users as well. And you can assure them that they only need to access what's intended for your work or task. Next, we also have a broad device support. When we talk about using remote access in terms of devices that we can use or access, you can access a PC, a Windows PC, a Mac, and a Linux computer. And you can access them from from the same platform, from your Windows, your Mac, Linux computers, plus your mobile devices, either running an iOS or Android. You can also access devices from a Chrome browser. If there are users out there who are still using Chromebooks, this aligns with convenience use case that we've mentioned earlier. Being able to for our users to be able to use any device that they have already available for them allows them to have a quick, convenient adoption of a remote access environment. And lastly, of course, we have to talk about collaboration. So when we talk about remote access for a large enterprise or organizations, you're probably going to be working with a different set of people in your team, and you need to communicate and collaborate. So with Splashtop, it enables two users to remotely access a computer at the same time. We have seen a lot of this use case for monitoring our members' work. Some of our users use it for training, showing their members how a certain task is being completed and remotely. And since two users can see the screen at the same time, it will help collaboration much more easier. And there's a lot of features that I would like to talk, which I can show instead later in the demo. You will see we have in-session features, different functionalities that can help during the remote session. We also have the admin portal. We have reporting and audit functionalities as well. Of course, in Splashtop, we always have security in mind first, not just allowing computers to remotely access or the functionalities, but our platform has been trusted over 30 million end user across thousands of businesses, ranging for small, medium, and large enterprises. We have a secure platform. Our cloud infrastructure right now is hosted in Amazon Web Services, or AWS. This provides a secure network and computing environment, including but not limited to firewalls at a network level, application, and instance layer. We also implement data encryption and DDoS mitigation security functionalities as well. Another one is we have intrusion protection in place. So we have intrusion detection and defense mechanisms for our production environment running 24/7. We have adopted the industry best practices when building our cloud application stacks to ensure security is enforced and instances are fortified in Splashtop. And lastly, we have an application security in place. On our endpoint devices, we have implemented multiple levels of security protection. This includes mandatory device authentication and two-factor authentication for our endpoints. All of the remote sessions in Splashtop are protected with TLS and AES encryption. If you see at the right portion, Splashtop have published a lot of white papers. You can see it in our website regarding how we can help you with compliance to different industry standards, like the ones you see here, HIPAA, ISO, and SOC 2 standards. So with this, now you have a fast and simple remote access tool, which is also very secure. And there are still few organizations out there that are not very comfortable with adapting cloud applications, and we can help them with our white papers and educating them on how we comply to those security standards which they will require. With that said, I will switch to my demo here so you can see a feel of the application as well. Do we have a questions before I proceed to
yes,
the demo?
Actually, before you move on to the demo, I have a quick question here. You mentioned Splashtop is cloud, right? I just want to clarify because we have some users who are using VPN. How does Splashtop fit in those environments?
First, that's a good question, Leo. No? I do also get that question for a lot of my customers and leads. No? So, usually for those types of users, when they said that they are using VPN, most commonly they are using RDP in order to allow their users to initiate a remote session. But with Splashtop, as I mentioned, we don't need a VPN. All we need is an internet connection between our user and the devices that they want to access. So you can completely remove VPN access for those end users. And I just want to discuss as well VPNs. Uh, in my experience and some of the customers out there, it's very expensive to set up and maintain the VPN connections. And if it's not configured or managed properly, there could be a significant security risk involved. For example, uh, you have end users accessing from their workstations at home, and you give them VPN access to allow them to connect to your internet. There could be some malware or virus in their own workstation that could infect the whole organizations, the whole internet. So we do recommend to move away from a VPN connection. Again, in terms of simplicity of the setup, it's very easy to move to a cloud remote access solution like Splashtop. But Leo, we also understand that there's organizations out there, especially in strict finance industries, where they really don't allow cloud applications in their organizations. Splashtop also has an offering for this one. We call it Splashtop Enterprise. So this is more of an on-premise solutions where instead of subscribing to a server in Splashtop over the cloud, you get to install the Splashtop application, the gateway on your own servers on your local internet. So you don't need to enable any internet access for your workstations or your servers. And you can still have all the benefits, all of the management benefits of having a remote access tools. Unlike if you're still using RDP right now, you could be missing with a lot of the control, management functionalities and reporting. So it depends on the requirement of the end users as well.
Okay, thanks, Benz.
Yeah, thanks, Leo. It's a very good question. So I'll switch my screen here for a while. So before I demo the applications, let me just have a quick overview of what needs to be set up. Again, it's still very simple for our end users out there or organizations that who wants to adopt Splashtop Business Access Pro. First, on the devices that you need to remotely access, or the devices in your office, in your laboratories, that you need to give access to your end users, we need to install a Splashtop streamer client. So a streamer client can be installed in a Windows, Mac, or a Linux device. From here, you have an option to start it up immediately. When the OS application starts up, the streamer client is already running and the end users can remotely access immediately. You can also embed the credentials in that client as well. So whenever you require, let's say your end users would require an admin rights in order to do a task in their particular workstation, instead of giving them the credentials personally, so you can just embed it. You don't have to share it in a text file or a flat file to our end users out there. So once the streamer client has been set up, you'll see here it's running as an agent in our local workstation. Now we move to our technicians or our end users. So for our end users, for our professionals, the teams who needs to remotely access a workstation from their home, from a coffee shop, on their device, they need to install a Splashtop Business Access application, which you can see here. I'm running a Windows, so this is the Windows version of that application. There's also an app for Mac and Linux. If you look at the Play Store in Google or Apple Store, there's also Splashtop Business Access Pro as well, and those are which allows you to have a remote access in any type of devices that you might need. So once you've logged in your business applications, what you'll be prompted here is the list of servers or workstations that being assigned to my account. So again, as I mentioned earlier, you have a granular control let's say for my account, I am only given access to one workstation, so only one workstation will appear here. And you can also, this is already grouped based on my role. For in this example, I am an IT, so an L1 support. So these are the L1 servers assigned to those group as well. So what you'll notice here that there are items in gray and in the workstations in blue. So this means that the ones gray are currently offline. In Splashtop Business Access Pro, we have a remote wake up or wake on LAN functionalities that which allows you to uh, turn on a computer remotely if the BIOS or the application supports it. So to start a session, I just simply need to click the device that I need to connect to. You'll notice there are four buttons here. One to initiate a file transfer, chat, and then some information or details on the remote workstation. So to initiate the session, I simply click the connect button. Again, in this scenario, I'm being asked for credentials. As I mentioned earlier, you can embed this so that our end users don't have to input their credentials every time they need to access a device. And that's it. I'm now remotely accessing my workstation. Again, the setup is very simple. First, you need to have the streamer client installed on the device that you want to access. For our users, you need to have the Business Application Pro. And once you have set it up, you just have to log in and click connect. And here, I can proceed to my workstation. I can do whatever I need to complete my tasks. I can access applications already installed. We also have functionalities for a high frame rate. You'll notice here on our view options, we have a super high frame rate functionalities. This is very helpful for our designers out there, the ones working in Photoshop or video editing. It gives you a more real-time feedback of the application, and they would be very productive in terms of their own type of work in the system. So other functionalities or in-session functionalities that you can do with Splashtop. You have shortcuts here to initiate a control alt delete action. If there's an end user on the end of the workstation and you don't want to get interrupted, you can blank their screen or lock their keyboard and mouse, and you have full control of the workstation. Next, if there are multiple monitors as well on the device that you want to remotely access, you can switch. The monitors will be visible here, and you will be able to switch between monitors in your application. File transfer functionality. Again, as I mentioned, one of the use case, there are confidential files that you need to move from your workstation to your own local device. You can see it here. I can see my own local directory and the directory of the remote computer. So I just have to simply click the file, and once you have found a file, just simply select it and then download it to move to your own devices. If the file is on your own end or your own local device, you can then hit upload, and then it would be transferred to your remote computer. And lastly, we also have recording functionality. So recording functionality, this means that this entire screen that you're seeing right now, the entire remote session is being recorded in a video file. This would be very helpful if you need later on to review what has been done on your workstation. Most of the cases, you'll be using this for training or as using the sessions you did as reference to your members, to your students out there, and then share the file from your own local computer. And of course, again, if there's an option to have a chat with an end user at the end of the workstation. So here, let's say AI. So that will prompt a chat box on their end, and then they can reply, and you can have a chat with them. To quickly end the remote sessions, I simply I can disconnect from here. if there's an end user on the other end, he can end the session as well from his own device. So I just quickly hit end, and that's it. The session has been ended. So I just want to move to the management features of Splashtop. As mentioned earlier, Splashtop Business Access Pro is intended more for teams. So you have a user management and device management functionalities in the system. First, if you look at management here, you can enable or disable users in your account. So one account will be acting as the administrator of the system, and he can enable, disable account, invite other users to be part of the team. You also have access to the different types of computers currently managed by the system. So here, I can see the list of computers, what group they are in, what type of users have access to those computers as well in the system. And as I mentioned earlier, we have group functionality. So you can group different users, and then you can also group computers and then assign like a mix and match of what they need to access in your system. During the remote session earlier, I mentioned there were a lot of features or in-session functionalities you can do. In Splashtop, you have a granular access to the permissions and controls. Here, teams, you'll notice here we have a lot of checks, but if you want to disable file transfer, you only want them to have a remote access or screen sharing, so you can disable file transfer for them. If you don't allow them to print, copy paste information between the device, if you want to disable them to remotely wake up or reboot the computer, you can also do that here. Chat and other functionalities you have available. So this gives you, again, in terms of security, very granular access. You have accountability, control the accountability of what users in your organizations can do in your workstation as well. And if you want to step up the authentication, have a more secure environment, you can enforce two-step verification here using their own mobile device. Enforce that as an administrator of the system. Maybe aside from managing the users' devices, later on as part of the organization, you need to review what the users has been doing, how often they use the application. So we have logs as well that will show you how many sessions are being done in your environment. So here I can filter this based on days. Let's say I want to view all of the remote access for the past 30 days. If there are files shared, what are the type of sessions being conducted? I can all see it here in my information. You can use it for reporting or audit trail. Let's say something happened to a workstation and you want to figure out who made the last changes to that one. You can see the information here of who accessed it, when he last accessed it, and you can do your investigation from here on. So there are different logs here. There are sessions only done, file sessions or file transfer sessions. Those are separated here. The history is more of like an audit trail of your own platform. So here you can see how many attended access was initiated in the system. If there were login attempts, failed attempts in the systems, you can see that here. If you'll notice, they are using a different IP address where they're using it from. You can also see that in our information here. And the information can be exported as a file, CSV file, and you can use it creating your own pivot tables later on as part of your management. Okay, so that's a very quick overview of a Splashtop Business Access Pro. You'll also notice here, as I mentioned earlier, you can initiate the remote session from a web browser. That's why you can see we have a connect action here. This will initiate a remote session from a web browser for our users out there who haven't installed the business application yet. So with that said, I hope everyone had a clear understanding of how Splashtop works, how simple it is to initiate, how quickly you can use it for your team, for your member, how to simply set it up. Again, if you're new to this type of infrastructure or remote, you haven't used any remote access tools yet in our organizations, Splashtop can really help you enable and quickly adapt for your end users out there. So I'll hand it back over to Leo if we have some questions from our audience. Leo?
Yes, actually, we have some questions, Benz. No, first question is: can multiple users access the same computer?
Yes, that's correct. It's a very good question. So I mentioned earlier that Splashtop is intended to be used in the enterprise, especially for teams. No? So with Splashtop Business Access Pro, you can have two users remotely accessing one device at the same time. So meaning, for example, me and Leo are accessing a device at home. So I can see the screen, Leo can see the screen. If there are tasks or actions being done by Leo on his hand, I can see it on my screen as well. And this would be helpful for, let's say, training or just shadowing or monitoring the work of a different member. It's very possible with Splashtop Business Access.
Okay, thanks, Benz. Another question here is: how many computers can I access at once?
Okay, for Splashtop Business Access Pro, one user can actually access 10 devices at the same time. I'm not sure, but for me, that's too much sessions. But it's possible to have 10 different sessions open at the same time. Given that you're using the Splashtop Business Access Pro on a Windows or a desktop application, so Mac or Windows. If you're using accessing remotely from your mobile device, as I mentioned, we have applications for iOS and Android. It's currently limited to one sessions at a time. So meaning if you want to switch, you have to close one session and then connect to another session or another device for that one.
Okay, actually, two more questions now. Will I be able to manage what devices my team can access?
Yes, I guess I've already answered this one during the demo, but I just to reinstate again, you have granular access control, you have user management functionalities, so you can group the streamer agents, the devices, either individually, give them name, or group them as a let's say for example finance computers. Once you have grouped your devices, then you can assign them again to either an individual, a user, or to a group of users. So for example, the finance team. So you can, with Splashtop, you can assure that certain users and certain group of users can only access a device that they need to. That's a very good question in terms of user management.
Okay, actually, one last question here. How much investment is needed for Splashtop, or do you offer monthly billing? Actually, I could answer this question for our audience. So we do not offer an annual billing. We do offer a yearly billing, although it's priced monthly. The billing is annually. This is the best efficient way of getting those um, efficient cost or prices within Splashtop. So it's billed annually for Splashtop. It looks we've covered all our questions, Benz. Now, do you have anything else to say to our audience, Benz?
Yes, actually, good questions overall. I just want to thank you this opportunity for having to share Splashtop Business Access Pro to our users out there. I just want to say again, unfortunately, it was during a pandemic or an emergency that we were able to start using this remote access, investing in new technologies. And I hope that everyone would start looking into remote access and would continue would be looking this as part of their initiatives later on in terms of their business continuity plan. We don't know. COVID isn't the first global crisis that we've encountered, and I'm sure it won't be the last one. So beyond supporting business continuity, remote access can also diminish the time and stress of long commutes and help adapt our newer generation of working remotely. And if there are use from our attendees, if you are interested to try Splashtop, you can reach our account managers in Service IT Plus on how to get a free trial, or you can look at the website. Splashtop Business Access does provide a free trial for our end users. And if you need a deeper demo for us, feel free to reach us in Service IT as well. I'll be happy to do a more in-depth demo for you guys. So thank you, Leo, and thanks everyone.
Okay. So to wrap it all up, thank you, Benz, and thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. No, enable work from home with Splashtop. Once you leave today's webinar, you will be receiving a follow-up email within 24 to 48 hours with a link to view a recording of today's webinar. You can also reach us through our website, www.serviceitplus.com. Email us at inquiries@serviceitplus.com or call us on 0915-613-7733 for inquiries or meeting requests. You can also reach us via our different social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and also watch our previous webinars in our YouTube channel. Stay tuned for our upcoming webinar with Sherwell and so much more. Save your spot by registering now through the links we have provided in our newsletter. Thank you again for joining us and have a great rest of the day. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Benz. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.